Okay. All right.
Here we go.
Yeah. All right. So, Bill, thank you for being here and appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah. So I know it's funny, Bill, when I was looking at your website because I've referred so many men to you. I don't know if they've ever showed up, but I've referred a lot to you, and I thought I need to kind of peruse his website a little more so I can let people know. And as I was looking, I was like, oh my gosh, the language that you used and just the heart behind it was just so similar to, my heart
Yeah.
and what I, you know, love to offer. And it just, yeah, you wrote so beautifully. But before we dive into that, would love to just hear a little bit about your background and yeah, what you know, where you came from, what brought you to Athens, what your ministry is all about, what your counseling practice, kind of
Yeah.
in a in a nutshell, right?
The brief version, right?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Man, well, yeah, thanks for having me. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm not a native to Georgia like a lot of Athenians. I grew up in Arkansas. And I grew up in kind of a small town that slowly got subsumed by the capital city in Little Rock in Arkansas.
Okay.
Um, and I think if I think about my journey as a counselor, a lot of it even just begins then. When I was 10 years old, we adopted my little sister,
Mm,
and she had been raised in an orphanage up to that point. I think even as a kid, just all of a sudden, what was introduced into my life was this awareness of, oh man, your family matters. It shapes the
mm,
way that you interact with the world.
mm.
And so that was kind of a question in the back of my mind, or a sort of interest. Went to college outside Chicago and bounced around a little bit as a young adult. After college, my then wife and I moved. I had to get away from the north. It was really snowy
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
dark in the winter, and so I
Right.
fled to the heart of the South in Jackson, Mississippi.
Oh,
And
wow. Okay. That is the
yeah,
heart of the
yeah,
South.
big transition.
Yeah.
Um, and studied marriage and family therapy and counseling at a seminary there actually.
Hmm.
Maylin, my wife, and I will joke about the implications for our marriage of getting married and 2 weeks later moving to a marriage family therapy program.
Wow. Yeah.
Some of us need a little extra help right at the very beginning.
Right.
But
Right.
and so we did that, moved back to Arkansas, and I practiced for a few years. I did admissions for a psychiatric hospital for a
Hmm.
little while, and then worked in two shelters simultaneously. One for children in the foster care system, and one for women fleeing domestic violence.
Wow.
Uh,
Hmm.
and after that, I went and worked in what in Arkansas we call a treatment center, which is for juveniles. Is You don't have prisons because you don't put juveniles in prison. What you have is these treatment centers for adolescents that have been convicted. And so I worked with juveniles that had been convicted of sexual offenses.
Hmm.
And that was very difficult work. It was deeply
Hmm.
formative for me, just in terms of thinking about. We'll get into this, but as a pastoral counselor, okay, what does the gospel have to say for these kids who have
Mm.
done some horrible things, also experienced a lot of really horrible things?
Sure.
Um, how do you bring dignity and love there?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, did that for a little bit of time, and then you know, really it was kind of the itch to get back into academia, kind of struck, and so in
Hmm.
2017, our family moved here to Athens. Did a PhD in human development and family science. Again, coming back to this question of parents and of parenting, and so I studied religious parents and their kind of communities, and so a lot of
Hmm.
the research I ended up doing was looking at how communities come alongside parents and how they work together in their relationships and in parenting their children.
Hmm.
Um, there's a parallel story here about ordination that was kind of it would take too long, but kind of running side by side with that.
Hmm.
When I got done at UGA, I ended up coming on staff at the church where I'm at now. It's St. Thomas Anglican Church. here in
Hmm.
Athens. And and that's been for me, you talk about bivocational clergy, clergy that have two different jobs. Really, what I have is kind of
Sure.
co-vocational. I
Okay.
have two jobs that run side by side with each other.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so for St. Thomas, I'm the what's called the associate rector, which is kind of like an associate pastor.
Sure.
Um, and then I also have a counseling practice called the Inner Room,
Hmm.
where I continue to work with individuals, work with families, and work with couples, and each of
Hmm.
those is a little different, but the variety is kind of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love
Yeah,
that. It seems like the theme, that runs through, which is this is the heart of what I, read and the wording of your website is just that love for people and for relationships.
yeah,
Yeah, that connection piece, which is really the kind of the tagline of my channel. This is
yeah,
helping people to connect more deeply because I mean, I believe we're designed for connection first with our creator and then with one
right,
another. Yeah, yeah. So
yeah, yeah,
along those lines, I'd love to read. I know I told you I was going to ask you about this, but just the few things that you had said on your website that really stood out to me. One of the things that you said was Christian counseling is about having a whole and integrated view of
hmm
what it means to be a person created in the image of God and designed for relationships. So how would you say, kind of in your own words, how would you flesh that out of what it means to be created in the image of God and designed for relationships? And then in this world where that gets so broken.
yeah.
Um, yeah,
Well, do you mind if I say something about the first part of the sentence first, and
please.
then the integrated view I think is really important. It's I think a lot of times, particularly for those of us that live in the South and have, really, I mean, are Christians and want to do right by our faith, and sometimes there can be this anxiety about, I don't know about counseling. I don't, am I going to get in there and
Sure.
what are they going to tell me? And is really the issue just that I need to try harder, or something like that? And
Hmm. Hmm.
um, I think, those are questions I had. And when I started looking at, even when I started preparing for training and started looking at programs, I remember going to different schools that were Christian counseling programs and saying, hey, what does it mean to be a Christian counseling program? And I remember there was a magazine a long time ago that had this tagline that was caffeinated Christianity. And
Hmm.
I've always liked the idea of being, uh, being kind of caffeinated in your Christianity. What does it mean to, not just try to avoid the bad stuff, but what does it mean to like be proactively Christian?
Hmm.
And the place I ended up going, I remember sitting down with Jim Hurley was the head of the counseling program at the seminary I went to.
Hmm.
And I remember he mapped out this beautiful vision of, hey, God made the world. And he made the
Hmm.
world, scripture tells us he made the world according to wisdom. And that means we can know things. And
Hmm.
so that means science has not just like a place, but has a really prominent place in the Christian life. We think, hey, there are real things we can study about relationships and
Right.
about people. Um, we also think, man, there's so much more to life than just numbers and data. There's so much,
Right.
anyone who has ever tried to manage a relationship just based on, well, this is what the most recent study says, it's not going to go well. That's not why we
Hmm.
get married.
Right. Right.
Um, and so for me, that integration of kind of, I mean, it's what you read a second ago, but that integration of what's the very best that scientific study has to
Hmm.
offer, and what does Scripture teach us about who we are? And how
Hmm.
do I view both of those as belonging to the one Creator who made me and
Hmm.
loves me? You know, um, Thinking about, and then for that, your question about, so what does it mean to be made in the image of God? That really that really kind of gets at it. I might say there are three things there that being made in the image of God means it means dignity, and it
Hmm.
means complexity, and it means relationship. We
Hmm.
um, when I was working with those young men at the facility, the one of the things we would constantly wrestle through is like, hey man, you've done some terrible things here, and we're not going to blink at that. We're going to be honest about it. At the same time, you were, there's this great line from C.S. Lewis where he says the holiest thing you have ever seen is the person sitting across from you. You
Hmm.
know that um, the person sitting across from you, no matter what I've done,
Hmm.
I'm still made in the image of God. There's a dignity to that. Um,
Right, right.
there's also a deep complexity. God is infinitely complex, and He made
Hmm.
people like Him, and people are complex.
Right.
Um, there are no easy answers here. One of the things I'll tell my clients, and I'm sure you've got your own way of communicating the same idea, is like, hey, you've spent your whole life or your whole week or the whole
Hmm.
last decade wrestling through this issue and doing your best. Um, I've got some skills and a lot of training that I think can be helpful, but I've also only got 1 hour with you, and
Right.
so don't for a moment think that I think I can come in here and just tell you, oh, this is what you should do.
Hmm.
It's I'm going to help you find the answer, and I'm confident I can do that, but not because
Hmm.
it's easy.
Right.
Um, and then I think that last point is just that Scripture teaches us that God Himself is a relationship, that God
Hmm.
exists as a relationship of persons. That there's this great quote from John Paul II where he says, "God has revealed to us His most intimate mystery, that He
Hmm.
Himself exists eternally as a relationship of persons."
Hmm.
Um,
It's beautiful.
it is, and
Yeah.
I think, okay, well, God made me like Him. That means I need relationships. Uh,
Hmm.
anyway, that's a long answer. I'm sorry, but that's a
Yeah. No, it's
yeah.
great. I love it. I love listening to you. You have a lot of wisdom, Bill.
Oh,
So, yeah, no, I just finished Kurt Thompson's book, The Anatomy
yeah.
of the Soul. You read
Uh-huh.
that? Yeah.
Kurt is he's
I
awesome.
love it. Yes, but yeah, so because I come from this background of kind of going away from the faith for a long time and really searching out
Yeah.
lots of different kind of spiritual ways. And God has and in that I found I found a lot of wisdom, but I didn't have the whole enchilada. And
Uh-huh.
as God has brought me back to himself and to his truth, and then reading Anatomy of the Soul, I've just like it's
Yeah.
like this is the best of science, the best of
Hmm.
neuroscience that I've studied,
Yeah, yeah,
studied in
yeah.
so many other different ways that were not scripturally based. But anyway, and then having God's truth and his design, because he created us, right? And
Hmm.
so he knows how we flourish.
Yeah.
And anyway, the point of saying all of that was there was just something that Kurt said that I just heard a thread of you saying, that we are created, designed in his image. And so therefore, we are complex, but we're also worthy of dignity and connection.
Hmm.
And anyway, the thing that he says that made me think of that thread was that longing to be known and to
Hmm.
have, and that is the thing that heals us.
Yeah.
And it's the very thing that we protect ourselves against because of all of our
Hmm.
brokenness, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, curious how you see your work kind of coming alongside someone who is not feeling connected, feeling
Yeah.
ashamed, feeling
Hmm.
all the things that you say. Am I lovable? Am I safe? And maybe they're not feeling lovable, maybe they're not feeling safe, not feeling, they've had a lot of experiences um,
Hmm.
that have taught them otherwise.
Yeah.
um,
I think they're at the very core of our kind of life journey, right? Because we always experience ourselves as searching. We're always trying to do something. You know what I mean? So there's a way in which I'm not static. I'm always asking questions.
mhm,
And I really believe that at the very core of that it's those questions you just mentioned, and that Kurt Thompson does such a great job bringing out and even showing, hey, I mean, neurologically, we're primed for this. Is am I safe? Am I lovable? And I
mhm,
would add, can I win? Is there a
mhm.
you think about a little child, you imagine if you've ever known like a 5-year-old boy, those are the questions he's always asking is, are there boundaries? Do you see me and do you like what you see? And can I win at this? Do you think I can make it?
Mhm.
I think as adults, we're asking those same questions. for me then, because I believe those questions are there, it's not nearly so simple as just coming in and being like, hey, well, what's the am I safe question that you're asking? You know what I mean? We sort of it's I mean, Freud was wrong about a lot of things, but he was right about we're pretty good at hiding ourselves from ourselves.
Hmm.
And you know, but I think it's under there. And, so if I get you know, you see this with individuals, anxiety is a really, I mean, you think, well, what is anxiety? Well, it's I've gotten trapped in this spiral of trying to secure a sense of well-being. Um,
Hmm.
and the brain is a real organ, and it's sort of
Hmm.
gotten habituated there. And so sometimes we'll talk about, hey, you've got a feeling looking for a narrative. I've got this sense of unease that
Hmm.
my brain has gotten habituated to, and now I'm trying to solve it. So that's a real thing, and you think about biological science there, but then also ultimately there's really this question about are these things going to make me safer? If I, the person with OCD, this compulsion to perform these behaviors that are going to make me feel, I'm going to feel okay if I do this right,
Hmm.
um, let's, well, one of the things we're going to have to do is we're going to have to pull back from those behaviors. But then as soon as you do that, you're going to have to really confront this question of, I don't feel okay. Now we've gotten to a really good place in terms of now we can ask the honest question, I'm scared.
Right.
Well, this is where for me this is I, you know I think there's a lot of really good work to be done in a lot of different approaches to counseling. But for me, I had to come back to there has to be a real answer to that question. Um,
Hmm.
am I safe? But you
Hmm.
actually are safe. You are loved infinitely by the God that made you. Um,
Hmm.
if I can help you get in touch with that question in a real way, and then we can look at the answer to it, man, I've got really good news for you. I've got a lot of excitement for you because
Sure.
this is
Sure.
the thing you've been looking for.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. And yet I get curious because I'm totally on board with you. I get curious though. I have a lot of people that come to me, and I was one of these people who, um, had so much baggage with
Hmm.
the view and perspective
Yeah,
of God, and it's a hard place to even begin to believe in that safety or that safe
yeah,
haven. So
absolutely.
how do you work with someone who comes in with like, yeah, I'm not safe. I don't believe you.
Yeah.
I don't believe in a
And
good God. Yeah.
yeah. And I really think for counselors, we've got a number of different ways that we can appropriately address this. So, funny thing about me, all of my siblings became therapists.
Oh,
But we're all,
wow.
yeah,
How
we're all
interesting.
different kinds of therapists. But, I have a brother in Little Rock who's just a professional counselor, and I have a sister who's
Hmm.
a social worker.
Hmm.
Um, we all approach this question differently. You know,
Hmm.
For me, I wear a collar, and I work for a church. The question of religion is going to come up, um,
Hmm.
just in terms of context. I will say I've had a number of clients that aren't believers, or
Hmm.
even they maybe they got drugged here by a spouse, or
Hmm.
they were referred to me, but that's really not what they're looking for. Um, because I believe, as one person said, because I believe everyone's safe in the kingdom of God,
Hmm.
I'm not anxious about that. You know what I mean?
I
Like
love
it's
that.
not,
Yeah.
and because I'm not anxious about it, I don't feel like I have to force the issue
Yeah.
or like, you know what I mean? I'm really at peace with, I know that God loves you. And,
Hmm.
uh,
Hmm.
and if that's not where you're at with the journey, I don't feel like, I don't feel like I have to push that, by any means. And so,
Hmm.
I think, I've had clients come in and say, "Hey, I don't want to talk about religion." That's totally fine. All right.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we won't until unless you one day say you do. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I don't feel worried in either of those situations. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
so yeah, and then a lot of times uh another thing that'll come up is like you mentioned, people that, man, there's some real pain here.
Sure.
The you know we are broken people and we hurt people, and that's true in the
Hmm.
church.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and you know, for I mean, for me, that's a really fair question to ask. And um, what I want to help you do is you to discover that dignity that Christ has
Hmm.
given you, that that you really are safe and loved. Um, you know, Christ's followers betrayed him, so you know, I'm not surprised that we continue to hurt
Hmm.
one another.
Hmm.
Um, there all of those questions are safe ones to ask.
Right, right. I love it. I love it. That's so good. I actually jotted that down because I believe that we're all safe in the kingdom
Yeah,
of God. Yeah, I'm not anxious about, someone else getting there.
yeah.
Like the Holy Spirit is at work. Yeah. You don't have to
I,
you don't have to force it.
there's a story about an old Jesuit priest who a guy came to him once and said, I'm ready to be converted. I'd like to be baptized. And
Hmm.
the priest looked at him and said, I don't think so. Come back in a year. And I
Hmm.
always thought, I want to have that kind of confidence that God doesn't depend on me. That I
Yes.
can, you know,
Amen.
this is this is the Holy Spirit's work.
Mm,
You can come back in a year. You'll be fine. I'm not worried about you.
right. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. So how would you mentioned this sense of safety, and there's
Mhm.
lots of different ways we can define that. I would be curious to hear what you mean by that. That safety in God's kingdom.
Yeah. You know where this comes. So, and we've been kind of theoretical here. If you take it
Yeah,
practically, you think about marriage and marital conflict. There's a really common pattern uh, where couples can get into where we call the pursuer distancer dynamic. This
sure.
is
Hmm. Hmm.
Sue Johnson's EFT
Yeah.
stuff is amazing.
Hmm.
And well, what's happening here in brief is that one of the partners is really worried about problems in their relationship, and so they try to give voice to those problems. Maybe they do that in an unhelpful way. I mean, sometimes if I'm anxious, I don't always say things well. And then the other partner receives that as a kind of attack, and so
Hmm.
then, well, and so that's the first step, but this dance has been going on for a long time by the time we see them. And so eventually they're in this place where one partner is just constantly like throwing fire at the other person. I mean, just they've gotten louder and louder because they're terrified that they're not going to be heard. You never
Mm,
care, and so I'm trying to make you care. And the other partner, it's terrifying and overwhelming. And so they're hiding, and every time the person attacks them, they just kind of close up a little more. And now we're really stuck in a difficult place. And neither partner, for each partner, it just looks like the other person hates them.
hmm.
So there's obviously a lot of work that has to be done there. But the thing that I always think about is at some point, there's the terrible question, which is, are you willing to step away from this strategy for the sake of the chance of finding the other person? And
Mm,
so, for the person that pursues, are you willing to risk not being heard and get a little quieter for the possibility that the other person might want to hear you?
mm,
Or are you willing to come out from behind your shell and just for a moment face that really scary, what feels like an attack? Can you? Well, what I'm asking there is ultimately a question about risk and about safety.
right.
Um, and I think as the counselor, we can do this in a couple ways. One is that, Diane Langberg was a famous, she's still alive, but a famous Christian sort of abuse counselor and trauma
Hmm.
counselor. She would always say the job of the counselor is to be the presence of Christ in the room in a way,
Mm,
or she'd say Jesus with skin on. Theologically, maybe I've got some questions there, but
right.
um, but that idea of can I help you feel safe? And when
Mm,
I do that, really what I'm doing is actually I'm giving you a gift that God's given to me of knowing that I'm safe.
hmm.
The other thing I've had people do, particularly people that are in the church, that faith is an active part of their life, is I've said, hey, before we ever come to your spouse, can we work through some of these things with God? Can you bring the thing you're terrified of or the thing you're ashamed of Can we bring that to God and have you experience that safety? And
Mm-hmm.
now I might have the courage to do that really terrifying thing of coming to my partner, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's kind
Mm-hmm.
of that's one example maybe of the way I think about it.
For sure. Yeah. A sense of emotional and of safety, a place
Yeah,
as you said, rest inside. Yeah.
right.
Mhm, mhm. I love that, I love that. So I'm curious, you mentioned EFT. What
Mhm.
other, kind of, tools or, schools of thought do you pull from in your work as a counselor?
Yeah, so if you think about in terms of broad schools, I'm dyed in the wool a systems therapist.
Mhm,
I
mhm,
think about people as relational
mhm.
beings.
Yeah.
Um, and not all counseling schools work that way. I mean, sometimes
Mhm,
people just focus on the individual or other things like that. But for me, it's I know who I am in the context of my relationships with others.
mhm,
I within that, yeah, heavily influenced by Sue Johnson. I mean, her work, one, it just speaks to me. I mean, it's just this is the way I see the
mhm.
world. The other thing is research wise,
Yeah.
her the effectiveness of emotion focused therapy is just off the charts in comparison
Mhm,
with other models. Um, I pull a lot of what's called internal family systems,
mhm.
which you may have talked
Very
about with other
familiar.
folks
Yeah.
before, but yeah,
Mhm, mhm,
um, I think about the psalmist who says, "I quiet my soul before the Lord," and I always think,
mm,
well, who's doing the quieting? You know what I mean?
mhm,
There are
mhm,
parts of me that that I am constantly having to bring into line.
mhm,
Um, and and then I'm not opposed to like behavioral stuff. I did two
mhm,
levels of the Gottman model,
mhm,
Gottman method couples therapy,
yeah.
um, and that's a really great let's lay some ground rules kind of stuff. Hey, how
Mhm,
do I
mhm.
behaviorally what's going to happen if I do X in my marriage, versus Y.
Right.
Um,
Mhm,
and so a lot of that's running up in the background.
mhm, mhm. That's great. I love it. I've had the introduction for EFT. I'm about to do the next level. I'm
Oh, fantastic!
excited in the fall. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm, mhm. So the body centered work that I did so much training in, um, is similar. It's a similar thread, with individuals. But anyway, that's I'm excited about that. I'm glad to hear I have a fellow believer in that, or
absolutely.
seeing the efficacy of all that. It's cool. Yeah, yeah. So I'm curious. I'd just love to hear a little bit more about your role in the church, and how that dovetails with what you do, with people in the inner room.
Yeah. Well, so at the church, I'm the associate rector, which can mean a lot of menial things. I was trying to get rid of a bug problem in the kitchen the other day, and I was thinking,
Right.
this too is ministry.
Right.
Or setting up parking lot signs. But
Hmm.
I do some preaching, of course, and that kind of thing. But
Hmm.
a lot of my work at St. Thomas has to do with families. It has to do
Hmm.
with kind of guiding families through that kind of journey of raising children. And then a lot of our pastoral care. And
Hmm.
so that means it means meeting with folks and loving on them. It also means referring folks and helping them get,
Hmm.
a lot of times, man, I don't like if I'm going through a really hard time, I don't know that I want to go talk with someone I'm going to see every week, in a public
Sure.
setting. And I get that. That makes perfect sense to me. And so uh,
Hmm.
build relationships with other counselors and help people get connected to them, and that kind of thing.
Gotcha.
Um, the thing that I enjoy the most though is some work that I get to do around formation. And there's
Hmm.
a we this past spring, for example, we launched a new ministry at St. Thomas. We call the Lay Shepherds Program.
Oh,
If
neat.
if a person's ever been Methodist, I think they have something like this called Stevens Ministers.
Hmm.
But
Familiar. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
And so I got the task of taking them through for a few weeks. What does it mean to get your heart to a place where you're able to love people?
Mhm.
Which is really, I mean, it's the same work just with a different kind of label, but that idea of um, what does it mean to bring my to quiet my own soul before the Lord,
Mhm.
and to know that
Mhm.
I'm, like a weaned child with it on the lap of his mother, that I'm
Mhm.
completely safe here.
Right.
Um, so that that's a lot of what I do, just in different kinds of modes.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so I wonder with all of that in mind, as you are helping people to, walk alongside them, how do you as I've always, you know, been curious about this, and I know ministers do this in different ways, but
Yeah,
how do you get support? How do you have your, as you are shepherding many people and helping many
yeah,
people, just wonder how what that looks like for you.
yeah. So we've got five kids in
Mhm.
our family, and one of the things that I'm gonna get this is related, but one
Mhm.
of the things that I'll tell new parents is I'll say, listen, you've got to get really good at seasonal changes. That you've
Mhm.
got a strategy that's going to work right now, and it won't work when the kid's two, and it won't work when
Right.
they're four.
For sure.
Um, the important thing is to keep moving. And I think, just in terms of even as a pastor with self-care, there's a
Mhm.
lot of that of, you've got to be doing something. I've got a group of clergy from around the country that it's a real small group, but we're all scattered
Mhm.
abroad. And we meet once a month with a old retired priest for spiritual
Mhm.
direction. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
I love it. Yeah.
It's just the best.
Mhm.
Um, so you do things like that.
Mhm.
I've got a phenomenal team here that we really sort of love and care for each other. And I think having I really feel for pastors that are on their own. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah,
Um,
for
I've
sure.
you know I've got my I work with I work with two of my best friends, and so I get to
Mhm.
I get to call them and
Mhm.
say, hey, I'm having a terrible day.
Right,
Um,
right.
and then yeah, so there are those kind of structural things. And I think my wife and I have really, I mean, the Lord has blessed me with an incredibly, just in incredibly thoughtful and wise counselor and a wife. And so
Mhm.
I most of my good ideas have come from her in some way. Is the you
Love
know
it. Yeah. Yeah,
yeah
it's so important. Yeah. That's great. That's great. And what a gift of like the computer, right? To be able to meet with
yeah
those men abroad.
yeah
Yeah, on a monthly basis. That's great. Yeah. It's a good use of technology, right?
yeah,
Um
it is a blessing.
Mhm, mhm. I just wanna see, I know I had kind of written some questions down, see if there's anything I've not touched on. Yeah, you mentioned, um, that you see individuals, you'll see couples, you'll see family.
Hmm.
Is there it sounds like you like the mix of it. Is there one that you're drawn to more than another in the season of your life, or do you just kind of like working with all the different types of
The variety is
relationships?
fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
variety. Mhm.
no, the variety is a lot of fun. I love working with. I really enjoy, this is gonna sound kind of strange, but I think you'll get it, is high
Mhm.
conflict couples. I mean,
Mhm.
couples that
Mhm.
come in, they're really they're mad at each other. And
Mhm.
the reason I say that is because if you're this is the real trick, right? And I know you've encountered this too, but if a couple is mad at each other, there's a lot of passion there to try to
Mm.
fix things.
Right.
And so couples that are having a really hard time, that have been even where they've been stuck in a rut for a really long time, um, that I think the relationship there is so fun to come alongside and help them work through.
Mhm.
Um, so get to do uh, a lot of great work with men.
Mhm.
I think in this town in particular, there's a therapy is one of the only places where there's a shortage of male
It's
counselors. And
true. Yes.
um,
Mhm.
so I really enjoy getting to come alongside men in this thing
Mhm.
that feels really foreign. I'm going to come sit with a guy and talk about this stuff that I'd really rather just work hard to get out of.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and just be in a safe place for that, and
Yeah,
where you don't lose any dignity in
right,
that process.
right. Love that. I love that. Well, I'm grateful for you and other men of faith who are doing this and
Yeah,
as a career because yeah, I have worked with a handful of men over the years, and I usually come to a point where I will say, "You need to go see a man." Like
yeah,
I can only help you so far, and then
right,
this is out of my realm.
yeah,
Um, just think there's something that men offer men that's different. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, and there is, I mean, I'm sure you've done good work with them, and I've had women that I've worked with, and we've done great things.
sure,
Um, but you get to places where you think, it's almost like working with someone it's like working with someone from a different culture. It's
for
sometimes we're going
sure.
to hit issues where you could explain this to me, but it'd be so much easier for you if I could help you find someone who just already understands
Right,
what's going
right,
on. You
for
know,
sure, for sure. So, I wonder, do you work with kids or adolescents at all, or do you stick with adults?
my rule of thumb is I will work with adolescents or children in tandem with their parents.
Got it.
Um, Now there are, I should say with children, we have some really gifted play therapists here in Athens.
Yeah, we do.
Um, and I learned very quickly that that is not a gifting I have. And
Sure.
so, those people are just a gift from the Lord, and I happily refer to them.
Right.
Um, I haven't, I've worked with adolescents in the past. After spending so many years working with adolescents who have been removed from their homes, I've come to a conviction that not that parents are always the source of the problem. That's not what I'm saying at all. But parents are definitely the source of the solution.
Mm,
To help, and that's my
right.
own. Another person might rightly disagree with me, but for me, if I'm going to help this child heal, I've got to do it with the parents.
Absolutely. Yeah. I can agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah,
We have a similarity in that, and just in that, yeah, I don't. My gift is not kids or adolescents. So work with folks, adults. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, so what do you outside of your work? What do you enjoy?
Um, yeah. So I've got 5 kids. So
So
there's
your time is
that's
spoken for.
yeah. I can tell you the hobbies I would have if no,
Right.
I love being a father. I mean, it's just
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's draining, and it will wear you
Sure.
out and make you,
Sure.
my hair's thinning, but
Mm-hmm.
it's also just the absolute spice of life.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, so I love that. I have been dabbling in poetry lately. That's
Oh,
a
nice.
so I grew up in a great home, but it was not one where the arts were really pronounced. And
Mm-hmm.
as an adult, I've been trying to remedy that. So this year I bought a bunch of books on poetry, and I've been I'm not going to share any with you, don't worry, but I've been
Mm-hmm.
dabbling and writing my own, and that's been
Mm-hmm.
a great, someone challenged me once that if you're going to be an effective pastor or counselor, you've got to be a whole person.
Mm.
And so I've just been enjoying doing something I'm not any good at, and
Yeah,
like, hey,
that's
there's
great.
beauty here.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Neat. Neat. Yeah. So, yeah, I know your family just a little because we're girls,
yeah.
same age and let to play together. Yeah, got a sweet family. Yeah,
Oh, well, thanks. We
very, very much. Yeah.
we feel the same about you
Um,
guys.
yeah, all good. Glad. Um, anything else you can think of that you would wanna share, just about your work or about, what is what your passion. I mean, you've shared a lot about what you're passionate about, but anything else you would want to add?
You know, I I'm really grateful to you for doing this. I do think you said something earlier, and I thought, man, that's the truth that people probably don't know is that when I refer someone to someone, I'm often, I don't really know what's going to happen if.
Right, right.
Um, but I think there are a lot of really wonderful counselors in Athens, and so I'm
Mhm.
grateful to know you. I'm also grateful for the ways that you're sort of networking and bringing different people together.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
the I think my encouragement to folks maybe listening to this that are thinking about counseling is just that there are a lot of people in this town who are realists about about pain and about whatever you're
Mm,
going through. It's man, we've been there, a lot of us ourselves, and we've walked with a lot of people through it. Um, and also, we really have a lot of hope for you.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's worth it's worth leaning in and seeing if somebody's else's hope um, can
Hmm.
can help you find some healing.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I like to say that I am an eternal optimist.
Yeah,
If I wasn't, I couldn't do this work.
yeah,
It's like you got to see the hope and that there's possibility
yeah,
amidst the muck because most people don't walk into our doors, because they're hopeful. They're
right.
walking in because they're desperate. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I love that. I hear the hope that you hold for people. That's powerful.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Great. All right. Well, thank you so much. I do have one last question. I told you I was going to ask you this. So hopefully you've
Oh
been thinking
no,
about it. Hopefully you've been thinking about it. So I have I'm not in love with mainstream Christian music. It's
sure.
very poppy. So I'm always, and I love the lyrics often, I'll listen sometimes and I'll be like, okay, I can't stand this sound. So, so I'm always looking for, off the beaten path kind of alternative or even folksy or whatever you would say.
Yeah.
Just different music that you might not hear on kind of mainstream radio. Do you have any that you would suggest?
Oh man. And I read this question and I thought about it and then I walked away. Um,
You're like, I don't have an answer, so I'm not going to think about it anymore.
no, 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 no. Okay, so
Okay.
I'll give you three real quick that I think about. My wife makes fun of me because she says that my music taste is slightly depressed and Christian adjacent. And
That's funny.
yeah, but
Yeah.
I think you asked about songs that were uplifting. I'll tell you one group that I like that was popular 20 years ago, and that's about where I'm at, is or
Okay.
10, 15 years ago, is Mumford and Sons.
Oh,
Um,
I'm not familiar. Okay.
oh man, they're
Okay.
great. They're sort of folksy or root music.
I love
It's
it.
an
I
Irish
love.
group,
Oh,
and
cool.
they're not. I mean, I don't know anything about their where they're at in terms of faith, but they've got a song called "Beloved,"
Hmm.
which is just I was working through some stuff by Henry Nouwen, and he's got a book
Yep.
called Beloved, and
Hmm.
I just thought, man, this is I don't know if this guy knows the gospel or not, but this is the gospel right here.
It's right on. Yeah.
Um, there's a
Oh, good. Okay.
there's another woman that I recently sort of found and I really enjoy listening to. Her name is Rose Betts. There's nothing, there's nothing like that's deeply moving for me about her
Hmm.
lyrics, but she's got kind of a fun voice. It's kind of, it's
Hmm.
again is that kind of folksy. I think she's Irish too. Maybe that's the
Oh,
underlying
neat.
theme here.
Yeah.
Um,
Right. I'm drawn to that kind of music too.
yeah,
I like it. Okay, good. Well, I'm gonna look them up. Thank you.
yeah,
I'll
absolutely,
I'll put a link in the description.
great,
Yeah. All
as
right.
recommended.
I know, right? Yeah, great. Well, thank you. Have you ever done any group work, with men? Um,
I
I mean,
Not
it sounds
here.
like you did in your intern, yeah, and like
Yeah,
the in
in my externship, I did a fair
externship.
amount of
Okay.
group stuff, and then when I was in Arkansas,
Okay.
ran a lot of groups.
Okay. Okay.
Uh, and I mean, I think groups can be phenomenal. So maybe one
Yeah.
day be a great
Yeah, I
thing to
was
get
gonna
into.
say I'm just planting a seed. We need some good men's groups in Athens. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I refer folks to them all the time. So
Yeah. Yeah.
there's a
Okay.
good word there.
Great. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Bill. And I'm sure I'll see you in our lives
Yeah,
in the future.
good to see you, Ann.
All right. Take good care.
You
Okay.
too.
Bye bye.
Bye.